Adam, have I got some stuff to tell you?
Play the theme music.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alun and I'm here with the ever itchy Adam.
Alan, ever since we've parted ways, I've developed a skin complaint that I don't care to discuss live on air.
Well, I'm glad you don't care to disclose it because all those maladies that happen after parting ways with me, there's something that I think it's best if we just leave in the past because we are remote, baby. We're firing audio at each other from thousands of miles away, and it's not been without its trials and tribulations.
I know the last couple of hours have been pretty rocky.
Mate, I pride myself on being a sort of technician-style traveller, on being able to kind of send Tripology to the stratosphere using technical know-how, but this has been incredibly difficult to sort out. It's been one of the harder things I've ever had to do, but I think maybe now, sort of quite tentatively, I feel like I'm talking to you through a cup and string with a very fine filament, but we're nearly there, I think.
The proof will be in the pudding. I look forward to seeing the result, and I'm sure the listeners, they're saying, oh my God, I can't believe that they're not with each other, but they sound like they're in the same room.
They loved it, the listeners, when we were there in that hot car, seeing turtles, cuddling each other at night, getting all baking hot. But this is very much a new season of Tripology, where two best friends call each other from somewhere in the world and discuss all about travel. And have I got what can only be described as a mega story for you today, my friend?
Yeah, I've been wanting to hear what you've been up to for a very long time, because what is a strange thing about our friendship now that we're not together is that we deliberately withhold crazy stories so that we can tell each other live on the podcast.
It's affected our friendship in an incredibly negative way, but the podcast has never been stronger.
I'm looking forward to it, mate. Let's dive in.
Last time I saw you, Adam, I was in a queue in an airport in ever such a terrible situation because I was just late for my flight, basically. I had to go and show myself to the check-in desk, even though I didn't have a bag to check in. And I've had more tentative, like, longing goodbyes with people who have just made me a cappuccino in the past. I basically just high-fived you and we just parted.
Yeah, anticlimactic, bit of a shame. Not really us. We'd normally give each other a big hug and a kiss and tell each other we love each other and all that sort of stuff. But you were running so late and I had to go in a different direction that, it was a bit of a godsend that we managed to find two flights that were only 10 minutes apart.
Very unusual, yeah, but unceremonious. It didn't really pay enough homage to the wonderful time that we'd spent together, but it was what it was. It was fine. We said goodbye, and then we proceeded, both of us, to take overnight flights. I don't know about you, mate, but it left me so tired that when I arrived at my destination, I'd not slept at all. I was like a sort of zombie wandering through Azerbaijan.
Yeah. Yeah, not a place that I've been. I couldn't give you any information, unfortunately, but I know you're excited to explore. What were your first impressions?
I was excited to go, mate, because since November, I'd been in Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, back to India, to Pakistan, to Oman, countries that the listening audience will know, the geographically minded, they are all Asian countries. It was an Asiatic adventure, and I love me some Asia, but I was excited to get out of Asia because it'd just been such a hell of a long time now. I was ready for a little break. I was ready to switch things up. And Azerbaijan is a transcontinental country. Oh, it's a little bit in Asia, but it's stepping a little foot into Europe as well.
Okay, you noticed that immediately, did you? A bit of European flair.
I was walking from my bus stop to my hostel, Adam, and I saw a cafe. I saw a bakery. I was wearing my shalwar kameez still because it's all I had. People were looking at me sort of a little bit confused, not in a negative way, but they were just like, what is that garment? Perhaps he's a Jedi. Perhaps he's up to no good. Perhaps he's up to a lot of good. He might be a sort of saintly figure. I noticed there were a lot of gazes upon me, and I thought that I'm in Europe.
They're wondering whether I'm Patan. They're all wondering, as everyone else has for the last 2 months, whether in fact I come from the western region in Pakistan.
Exactly. So there I was in Azerbaijan, in Baku, which is the capital of Azerbaijan, and a city that I have on good information would not exist if it wasn't for the incredible abundance of oil just inches below the surface.
All right, it's quite new, is it? It looks quite new, bit of cash there.
Quite new, a little bit like Dubai. It's quite well. A lot of people go there to shop. A lot of fashion items being purchased, a lot of perfumery being purchased. It's below sea level, the city, so the oxygen is so thick. I had to use a straw.
Did you buy anything? What'd you get?
I got a new pair of shoes because mine were literally falling apart.
Did you? I also bought a new pair of shoes, and I didn't even send you a
No
picture.
way. No, let's send
Yeah.
each other pictures after the podcast or put them on the screen right now if I can be bothered with the editing. So, look, Adam, I arrived there. I headed straight to my hostel. I checked in. I did laundry, fresh laundry. I'd not slept in a bed for 20 days because we've been going all around Oman. I'd been in that car, not done laundry in ages. Clean laundry. I went out for a lovely coffee and then passed out. I slept for 14 hours.
My goodness, you look pretty good for it. I don't think I've ever slept for 14 hours, if I'm honest.
No, it almost after the 12-hour mark starts to get worrying.
Yeah. I mean, 14 hours is more than half a day, Alan. And I know you were tired, but Jesus.
The hostel staff, they were like, okay, well, this guy has just arrived in a robe, had a coffee, and then slept for half a day. So that is unusual. But it left me feeling so great, man. I got up early the next morning. I put on my fresh laundry and explored Baku. I went to the old city where there's like this beautiful palace, this maiden tower, this huge structure. There's a lot of old art. I went to a miniature book museum, which is a free entry. You can look at all these tiny books, the largest collection of minuscule books in the world. See it if you've got like half an hour where you're desperate to do something.
That seems quite alternative, I'll be honest. How small are the books? Like what size animal would read those books, just so I've got an idea for sort of relativity?
They're about the size of a very small dog's paw.
Okay. Well, hang on. That would suggest that they'd be too small for a dog to read.
A dog couldn't read them, Adam. No way.
No.
But a beetle would be able to. They would be large print for a beetle.
Right. Sort of. What's the biggest newspaper we get in the UK?
Like a broadsheet, like the Guardian.
Yeah, like massive. It folds out once more than you think it should.
Yeah. If you were perhaps living a wonderful life, you were a man beetle bringing home a miniature book as a gift for your beautiful wife beetle, she would see one of those books and be like, Jesus, where are we going to put it? That doesn't fit on our coffee table. But in the inverse situation, you were perhaps a small dog. It would be exactly the right size.
Nice. Like a small journal, like a tiny little journal that you might keep, a notepad, if you will.
Yeah, very small. The Miniature Book Museum. It's there in Baku. It's free of charge because, my God, if they try to charge money for it, I mean, come on, it's a few small books. But the old city, very, very beautiful. I went out for some Azerbaijani food. They have these things called dolma. They're like little meaty pebbles inside a cabbage wrap. That's quite nice.
Oh, hang on. So not only do they sound a little bit Polish, which I know you're into.
Yeah, I do like it. They're very similar to the Polish głombek or głombki.
But they're also not too dissimilar from the Turkish or Greek food that's often rice or rice and meat wrapped in vine leaves.
If you spend enough time in Azerbaijan, you will learn that there's a lot of similarities culinarily with Turkey, and also the languages are almost mutually intelligible. Turkish people can understand Azerbaijani people and vice versa.
Oh, that's pretty cool. But your Polish didn't come in handy.
Not even at all. If anything, I had to delete some Polish words from my brain to make room for some of the Azerbaijani words. But by the time I got back, after a day of exploration, Adam, I got back to my hostel. Tired, fulfilled, clean laundry still on. I arrived, I went to my bed and saw the worst thing that I could imagine seeing.
The worst thing? Like the worst thing realistically? That would realistically be...
Yeah, a murder scene or something like this would have been worse. I do agree. But yeah, the worst thing that I could expect to see but would hope not to.
Yeah, go on. I could have a stab in the dark.
The inky black spots that are unmistakable to a man like me, a man that's concerned with insects in the night. It's basically it's the fecal matter of bed bugs, Adam, all over my pillow.
It's your arch nemesis. It's your worst enemy.
Yeah, it is. They're the worst thing that can happen to a backpacker, mate. I thought either someone's pen's exploded or we've got an issue here. And then I looked and saw two little bed bugs climbing the wall. And I thought, confirmed, we're in a bed bug situation here. I alerted the hostel staff. They moved me to a different bed. I saw bed bugs there as well. They moved me to a different room. No bed bugs, but now
They moved you to a different bed in the same room?
At first, that was their initial plan of action, yeah.
Oh, right. Damage limitations. I mean, how late at night are we talking? You were basically going to bed at the time you arrived home.
It was time for bed, mate, yeah. When you're like me and you've just slept for 14 hours, you will stay up later than usual. So it was getting to a point where it was the middle of the night, you know what I mean? And they tried to move me around a little bit. But the problem I was facing was not so much the fact that my bed was infested with bed bugs, which for me is the worst thing that can possibly happen. I would literally rather anything, pretty much. But my bag, my bag is underneath the the bed.
Oh no. So we think maybe there's some bed bugs in the belongings.
I have to assume that my beautiful bag, all the laundry within it, all of the clothes that I possess, even my laptop, because they love electronics, bed bugs. I have to assume that all those things have been compromised, Adam.
Oh, God. Oh, mate. What's the course of action here then?
Well, there's only one thing that kills bed bugs, I'm afraid, and that is intense heat. So you need 140 degrees Fahrenheit for a sustained period of time, about 30 minutes, in order to kill a bed bug and the heat-resistant eggs that they lay.
Oh, God. There's not even like a chemical spray that can't affect humans or anything like that. I mean, this is me just talking out of turn here because I've got no knowledge whatsoever.
Yeah, no, there's no spray that you can fumigate a bed bug with, really. Even professionals have to heat your house up to 140 degrees in order to kill the bed bugs. There's no fumigation that you can do. They're resistant to all of that. Isopropyl alcohol can kill the eggs, but that's the only thing you can do is heat. So I woke up the next morning and I had to place every single one of my possessions into the hostel dryer and bake them for 30 minutes on the highest setting. I turned that dryer room into a sauna. I was taking all my clothes off, baking them, putting my bag in there, baking it, laptop case, baking it, spraying my electronics with isopropyl, meticulously cleaning the ports to make sure not a single bed bug was allowed to leave that hostel with its life intact.
My God. And the hostel staff, they're just completely sort of accommodating at this point. Yeah, do what you got to do. I mean, how were they treating you? Were they apologetic?
They were worried they had a public health crisis on their hands, Adam. They clearly, it seemed to me like they'd had this issue before, unfortunately. They seemed like they knew how to deal with it a little bit too well. But the next day, when I came to check out the next day, she was like, "Oh, that'll be 15 minat, please, for your room." And I looked at her with the sort of sarcastic anger of that only a British man can muster. And I said, you've got to be shitting me.
Yeah, trying to charge you full price.
I've just spent the last 5 hours of my life nuclear reactoring all my possessions.
So what do they do then? What do they do for you? Complimentary stay? I mean, even that, is that even good enough?
It's not good enough, mate. And I've not left a review, and I'm not decided whether to put them on blast on the podcast yet. But I'll say this: if you're thinking of staying in Baku, in Azerbaijan, there's one hostel which seems like the obvious place to stay. You know what I mean? You go on Hostel World or Booking.com. There's one hostel that stands out as being like, yeah, that seems like the one where everyone stays. I would think twice about staying there.
And you said we weren't an informative podcast. No,
Yeah,
I think that's maybe a good little bit of advice. And it's a shame. It's a big shame, mate, because I'm sure that was a thorn in your side. And no doubt it caused you an untold amount of stress that late at night.
It's the worst thing that can happen to a backpacker, bed bugs, because they get in all your stuff and then you carry them around with you, and they're so difficult to kill, and they're so difficult to kill in a way that you have confidence that they are indeed gone.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it really is a nightmare. So I did what I had to do in order to guarantee to myself that I wasn't bringing them along for a ride with me, and then
Hmm.
got the hell out of Baku. And I'd love to tell you about the rest of my time in Azerbaijan, but we'll have to do that after a brief meditation break. We'll see you in a second.
Oh, see you there.
Like a bedbug surreptitiously crawling up a leg in the middle of the night, allow your conscious mind to return into your brain as we embark on the rest of my Azerbaijani adventure.
Looking forward to it, mate. A bit of a false start for you, but hopefully the rest of Azerbaijan made up for it.
Little bit of a false start, but I don't want to just spend this time ragging on Azerbaijan, because I did have a very unusual and brilliant time there in some sense. I went to Gobustan, mate. It's a little bit outside Baku, and I thought it was a really, really cool place. There's some petroglyphs there, which
Right,
are
what are they?
40,000-year-old drawings, markings on the walls of caves made by early hominids, early humans, and they depict like images of early man, pregnant women, yaks, aurochs, cows, all in the side of the. It'll be the oldest cave paintings that I've ever seen. 40,000 years old.
Oh,
Some of
really?
them. Isn't that remarkable?
That's really cool. What sort of condition were they in?
Oh, they were absolutely filthy. The lot of them. 40,000 years worth of gubbins all over them. No, they're very well preserved. They're like very hard to see, some of them. They're just faintly
Mhm.
etched into the wall. You know, you'll forgive them for not being the most artistically sound things because they are 40,000 years old. But they're legible. You know, you can see and imagine that there were ancient people really painstakingly carving them. And I think that's something beautiful about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but we've seen some petroglyphs of late, and we saw them in Pakistan together, somewhat, younger than the ones you've just described. But I've seen cave paintings before as well, and I don't know if it's unfair to say this, but they're never that good, are they, in terms of the likeness, the realism that people
Artistically,
have been
they do
able to
leave a lot to
achieve?
be
I mean, you
desired.
can sometimes barely. I don't know how many people have said this, but I feel like we're quite forgiving because they're so old. But some of them are quite shit. I mean, I've seen some cave paintings where you're not even quite sure what animal it is, and I think maybe I could do better. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, they're almost just representative little stick drawings, aren't they? It depends what the function was supposed to be. Like, were they trying to depict what they saw, or was it almost an early form of writing where they were just describing, almost like a journal to themselves, what was happening? Like, oh, this week I got my wife pregnant, draw stick figure with a large belly. This week I shot an auroch in the face with a pre-hominid bow and arrow, picture of an auroch on the wall. It depends what you're trying to do, you know?
Yeah, it'd be funny if that was the abbreviation was a more simplistic drawing, and the longer form was a really detailed picture.
Oh, you should see Steve's cave. It's absolutely adorned with the most realistic. Do you reckon the good artists back then must have had their pick of cave women?
Yeah, fair point. Got a
Because
point.
there's about only 3 skills available, wasn't it? You could either make tools, hunt, or cave drawing. As a man, those are the only 3 ways to really earn your keep.
Yeah, I would imagine that some people could have done both. No?
Oh, you reckon a hunter / artist? Oh, he'd have been such a dreamboat.
Well, or maybe we can deduce from this that the hunters were shit drawers because they often draw the animals that they hunt. So they might have been the only people that see those animals. Do you see where I'm going with this? They come back and they go, they go, oh, I've seen this big animal. Oh, I can't describe it to you in words because we don't have the vocabulary yet because it's not very complex language, but I'll draw it for you. And then they draw something that's incredibly simplistic, quite shit if you're honest.
And they go, oh, you've been hunting a basic geometric shape.
that almost looks like an animal that we've heard of this other tribe talk about.
And is that you over there to the left holding that rudimentary bow and arrow? Oh, you don't look like that. You look terrible in that drawing, but you're handsome in real life.
Yeah. You say, no, it's obviously a pregnant woman. Can you not see?
That's you. That's you I've just drawn.
That's you, 7 months pregnant.
Oh, do you not remember the time when you were pregnant just then, 7 months ago?
I know you didn't love me. You've never loved me.
You've been in Steve's cave all this time.
Are you surprised? Have you seen his drawings?
Steve drew a picture of me at 7 months pregnant. You should have seen the detail.
It was like looking in a mirror.
Which we haven't invented yet. It was like looking in a murky puddle. There you go. So that's the petroglyphs in Azerbaijan, thoroughly reviewed.
Yeah, go and see them.
Yeah, they were good. It was one of those times where, you know, I've seen ancient drawings before where you can really cast your eye back to a time where, you know, the hieroglyphs, imagine someone painstakingly drawing them. And this was a bit like that. I was a little bit rushed because, mate, I decided to go on my own. I decided to take local transport and then just hire a taxi driver to take me. And I thought, this is going to be so much more attractive because there's not going to be an abundance of other people. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be better. It's going to be all of that. What it actually meant was I was just stuck behind huge tour groups the whole time.
Oh, not good.
It was shit. So, you know, I'd saved this money and I thought, oh, you know, I'm doing this properly. I'm doing this as a local would. I've taken the little like minivan. I've spent like less than 50p to get here as opposed to like a $50 tour. Mm-hmm. I was basically just stuck behind several tours. It was so busy.
Oh no! Where were the tourists from? Is there like a certain demographic, or what sort of tourists does the surrounding area of Baku attract?
All over, mate. There was tourists from America. There's a lot of Pakistani and Indian tourism, but also, yeah, America, Europe, all over. And yeah, so it was one of those things where, in hindsight, I probably would have just gone on a tour because it was quite difficult to organize getting there myself. It was quite difficult to like get the taxi driver and conquer the language barrier that way and get a fair price and all that stuff. And then I was basically just on a tour anyway, but tours that I couldn't involve myself in or meet people on. I just had to like wait for them to finish and then sneak and see the petroglyphs myself.
Yeah, sure. Oh, a bit of a shame. Worth going though overall.
Worth going. And then just next to those petroglyphs, there's this mud volcano, which is like filled with oil and gas, and it causes the mud to bubble. It's not an actual true volcano in the sense it's not a portal to the magma at the center of the earth, but it's like a bubbling mud bath that's fueled by oil and gas. It's quite interesting to see.
Does it keep any sort of water pools around it heated that you can go and have a dip in, anything like that? Some smelly, sulfuric kind of natural baths?
No, not really. You can't be getting in them either because they're full of oil and gas and they stink to high heaven. So I saw an American tourist put her hand into the mud volcano and wipe the mud on her face, to which her tour guide said, "You really shouldn't have done that."
You've just reduced your life expectancy significantly.
Yeah, in fact, you've actually. She went, no, it's natural, isn't it? It's natural. And the tour guide said, it's oil and gas and mud, so it is natural in the sense that all chemicals that on the periodic table are natural, but you don't want to be wiping them on your face, you lunatic.
Oh God. And then there was a space available on the tour.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was probably one of the highlights of Azerbaijan for me. Gobustan. Again, shame that the touristic industry there is so bent around tours and so inhospitable to people going on their own. But it is just the way it is. I actually think one of the rare occasions I would recommend going on a tour. I spoke to some other travelers who had great experience on tours. I just normally don't recommend tours, so it feels strange to say, but I really was hindered by the fact there were so many tours and I was just on my own.
Yeah. I think that's all right. You take the rough with the smooth, and sometimes you got to, admit that maybe the best thing to do when it's set up for tourism in that way, and maybe they've like orchestrated that very specifically to try and generate money or bring money into the economy. Maybe that's just the way it is, mate.
I've got a lot of other stories about Azerbaijan, mate. I don't know where to go really. I've got a few more. I tried to go on some hiking without you, which was a shame because I really, really wanted your company. And those both kind of went disastrously wrong, both of those hikes. Would you like to hear about the terrible taxi ride, or would you like to hear about another insect-related incident?
Are we going to hear about both, or is this a one or the other type thing?
Well, I don't know. Do we have time to tell you both? I can tell you both quickly.
Go on, go for it, because I'm sure they're both spectacular.
Okay, so I arrive in a place called Kuba because I think I really, really want to do some hiking around Azerbaijan. So I get myself out of Baku and I go to Kuba, and there's two little villages near Kuba called Kinelig and Laza, which are known to be like the real cool hiking in the area. And I think, great, that's perfect. So I get myself to Kuba with the express intention of getting to Kinelig that night, staying in a guest house, and then doing some cool hikes in the morning. Yeah.
Okay, nice. With you.
I route around to try and find a cab driver who would take me all the way to Kinelig. It's about a 2.5-hour drive, and the only way to go, arriving at the time I did, was via private cab. So it was going to cost about £20.
Okay.
For a private cab. So worth it. Couldn't get it was either that or stay in a guest house in Kuba overnight and then get there the next day. So to save me the whole night in Kuba, I thought just pay for the private cab, get me there. Got a good deal on the cab, sat in the cab with him for 2 hours. We developed a bit of rapport. He tells me he's a judo instructor and he's like big bruise. He's got terrible cauliflower ear, doesn't speak much English. He gives me an apple. We have a bit of a rapport for the whole journey. It's quite a nice little adventure.
Yeah. Okay. Wary of him, were you a little bit?
In the sense that as a jiu-jitsu guy, I like to think I can handle my own. But this guy, I had a sneaking suspicion he would absolutely destroy me in any sort of physical conflict. So a little bit wary in that sense, yeah.
Yeah, you had your cash at the ready. Had you paid him yet, or?
No, I hadn't paid him yet. Okay. We drive for 2 hours and then come across the one bridge into Kinelig, and it is, it's so broken. It's collapsed into the river.
Oh, shit.
So he basically says in broken English, I can't take you to Kinelig. We have to drive 2 hours back to Kuba.
Oh, but hang on. How long's the distance over the other side of the bridge? Or is that the only way to cross is over that bridge? So you definitely
it's still
can't get there
too far. It's nightfall is happening now, and it would be like another 40-minute drive.
Oh, what a disaster.
So he's like, we have to drive 2 hours back. And we get back in his car, and I'm like, geez, this is so bad because I've lost the money on the booking of the guest house I had in Kinelig. I've now got to spend another 2 hours in the car with this absolute judo masterclass. And he says to me, I'm going to have to charge you 80 manat, which is going to be about 50 quid.
What, he's going to charge you double for coming back?
He's going to charge me double for coming back. And also, he's not taken me to where he said he was going to take me.
But what's the justification for charging? Because he wouldn't have charged you if he'd dropped you off to come back, would he?
No, he wouldn't, Adam. And I'm glad that you've taken my side in this, because I've spoken to some people about it and they go, well, I see his point, petrol and time. No. You've agreed to take me to Kinelig.
Yeah.
And I've not ended up in Kinelig.
The only justification I can think of is that he was hoping for another job in Kinelig coming back the other direction.
Mate.
And he's trying to get you to pay for the difference. That's the only justification. Even in that scenario, it's absolutely not your fault that the bridge is broken.
It was one of the most awkward 2-hour journeys of my life, where we sort of argued a bit about the money and then went quiet for 20 minutes. Then one of us would bring up what are we actually going to do when we get back to to Kuba? You know, what's the money? And then we'd argue again in like broken English. We tried to use the translation app, but there was no signal out there. So it was just like we kept on bringing it up like an old married couple, and then we'd be quiet, and then I'd go, and then I'd be like, well, I'm not paying when we get back to Kuba. I'm not going to pay you the money. And he'd be like, you're paying me. I'm judo master. Fuck you. And then we'd like,
were you sitting in the front?
Yeah, I was sitting in the front next to him.
Oh, wicked.
And then, look, we got back to Kuba. Now we've been together for 4 hours, me and this guy. And he's like, 80 manat. And I'm like, I can't, it's ridiculous to ask for 80 manat. I can't give you 80 manat. He eventually agrees to just let me pay the 40 for the one way.
Okay.
I'm still a bit upset at that. Like, I'm not upset. Like, I think that was a reasonable thing in the end, like 40. It's still, but for me, it's obviously massively inconvenient still because I've wasted 4 hours. I now need to find a hotel in Cuba. There's no hostels or anything. It's like really out of the way. And I've lost the money on my booking for my hotel in Kinalig. So for me, I'm in a massively awkward situation. And like, he's been aggressive. He's like charged me the money. So I get out of his car. I'm like, right, goodbye. Close the door. And he like, I'd left my water bottle in the car. And I'm like feeling really bitchy. And he goes, here's your water bottle. And I go, you keep the water bottle. And he throws the water bottle at my head out of his car. It bounces off my head. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Fair enough.
How funny.
Yeah.
God, your water bottle, was it plastic or is it one of those?
Yeah, it was
like,
a plastic one. It was like half, it was like almost empty, you know, but I just left it in there. Like, you throw that away. Since I'm such trash that you're going to charge me 80 manat, you throw away my water bottle. It was just like a petty little thing. And he just bounced it off my head. And I thought, when that water bottle hit my temple, I thought, I'm glad that was the extent to which this conflict became physical.
Yeah, that seems like a small price to pay. Also, like, let's just say, amazing shot, because if it's less than full, the water bottle, we know that when you throw it or when you flick it in the air, it actually doesn't move in the way you would predict. So he's got a bloody good shot on him as well.
Yeah, I think I saw in his eyes that he was calculating all of that prior to throwing it at me.
Yeah.
The second I told him that I was going to leave that water bottle in his car, he was like 100 milliliters. Thinking about the rotation.
Yeah, the wind direction.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Okay, that's crap. That's really crap.
Bit of a rough time. And then just quickly finish up my Azerbaijan adventure. I did eventually get to go on an amazing hike. Not in Cuba. I went to Lazar eventually and had a great hike that day. But I was struck by the fact that the infrastructure for travelers is so poor that you have to get private cabs almost everywhere. It was just so few other travelers to meet. So I wanted to do some hiking in Lazar. I ended up having to just do private cabs there. It was very expensive. And I found a home for the last few days in Sheki near the Georgian border. And there I finally went to a hostel where I met some other travelers to go on a hike with. And that was really fun. Some beautiful Azerbaijani Caucasus mountain wilderness. So I finally went on an amazing hike. And you know, I'd like to finish this episode and round out the whole story by saying I'm obviously feeling a little bit weary about bugs and bed bugs after my experiences in Baku. I went on an amazing hike with some other travelers. It was a great time. I'm exhausted in bed at the end of all of this. My last day in Azerbaijan, my last day in Sheki. And I go to scratch my leg. And what do I find there? But a bug. I think, oh God, the bed bugs. It's back. I didn't get rid of them. I didn't bake them effectively. I pull that bug off my leg. It's only gone and it's a tick, Adam. I got a tick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know we'd spoken about ticks as well.
I know.
And just remind me, mate, is it Lyme's disease that they can spread?
Lots of things, mate. Lyme's disease, one of them, a lot of other diseases. And I pulled it out, went to the doctors to make sure it didn't leave any mouth parts in me, tried to get some prophylactic antibiotics to treat any Lyme's disease, but they wouldn't give it to me.
What? Why not?
Because they were like, I don't know, man. They basically were unsure about what it was. I tried to explain to them that it was a tick that bit me. And they were like, oh, it could have been any creature. We don't know if there's ticks even here. And I was like, it was a tick. It had 8 legs and it bit me and latched onto me. It was a tick. They were like, oh, could have been a woodlouse.
Oh, God. Well, psychologically, what are you going through? Because I don't know anything. I don't know anywhere near enough about that kind of thing. So I would have been really worried in that scenario, but you felt like you had it under control, or were you panicking?
No, I felt upset. I felt upset by the ignorance of the medical authority there in Sheki. The lack of antibiotics would have just saved me some peace of mind. Because I'm still waiting, right? Like, it takes sometimes a month for Lyme's disease symptoms to show. Like, I think I'm okay. I think I pulled the tick off in time, but you never know. And obviously, like, I'm just a little bit scarred with the whole bug situation.
Yeah, God. Everyone else on the hike was all right, were they?
I
You
think
let the
so.
other guys know and said, "You're in shorts. You in shorts on a hike, were you?"
No, that's why it was on like my leg near my groin, because it must have got onto the lower part of my jeans and then
Right.
like crawled its way, you know, to try and get an area where I couldn't find it easily.
Oh, weird.
That's what they do. They
Okay.
go for armpits and groins. So they like latch on
Crikey.
somewhere onto your clothing and then sneak up.
Sneaky little buggers.
There you go.
Oh, okay. So what happens now then? You're just sort of waiting. You think you're all right, but you might not be.
I think I'm okay. Seems okay. And I'm just so grateful to be here in Tbilisi. I then crossed the border and arrived in this little apartment in Tbilisi where I'm spending the next 3 weeks. And I have to say, I did all my laundry again, nuked everything again, double checked, make sure there's no tick eggs or bed bug eggs or anything like that on me. And yeah, man, I think we're all in the clear. I'm enjoying just resting.
Yeah, 14 hours sleep every night.
Every night, my friend. Yeah.
Looking good for it.
Thank you, sir. And I'm looking forward to hearing all about you and your experiences in India next time we talk on the next episode of Tripology.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, mate. Back in India, really loving it. I'm in Jaipur at the moment, so I look forward to talking to you about that because I know it's somewhere that you've been, so we can connect the dots if you like.
Yeah.
I'm eating too much food as per usual, and I look forward to sharing all of that on Instagram.
Yeah, well, I think the audience can't wait as well. We'll talk about that all next week. There's so much to talk about. I'm excited about hearing about all your adventures. If people want to get in touch, if people want to follow us on Instagram, if people want to interact with the show in any way, the best place to do that now is to go to tripologypodcast.com. You can use the contact form to send us a message. You can go on our Instagram from there. You can read a little bit more about you and I. You can do all sorts of different things on there. That's tripologypodcast.com. From now, we're going to head off to the Lost and Found section, the Patreon section. It comes out 24 hours early. It contains some bonus content, baby. So let's head there now, and we'll see you all next week for Adam's India Adventures.
Can't wait. See you there.
Bye. Bye.